G'day, I'm Stephen Page from Page Provan, Family and Fertility Lawyers, and welcome to the Australian Family and Fertility Law Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. We love our subscribers. Today I'm talking about something I've just spent the last few days doing, which was the Fertility Society of Australia and New Zealand annual scientific meeting, or their conference. I am privileged to be a director of the Fertility Society and the secretary. But I went along, of course, aside from the duties that I had to do in that role, to, amongst other things, look at some of the sessions. And the two speakers that stood out to me were some keynote speakers from overseas, and they were Dr Michael Eisenberg from the United States at Pasadena, and Associate Professor Laura Rienzi from Italy. Now, I'll just start with Professor Rienzi. What she was talking about was embryos and research that had been done in Italy about how old can embryos be frozen and then used. And why that had come up and why Italy was surprisingly the leader in this field is because under Italian law, for religious reasons, embryos are considered people. Now, you might think that something that is smaller than the ball in this pen cannot possibly, and in liquid nitrogen, cannot possibly be a person. But apparently under Italian law, they are. So embryos can never be thrown out. It doesn't matter if they're defective in some way, as they often are, or they've been there forever, they cannot ever be thrown out. And it was quite shocking to hear from her that the law dictated, until the Supreme Court of Italy intervened, such things as a requirement to implant 3 embryos at a time. Now, Australian and New Zealand IVF specialists have led the world in single embryo transfer, which I've seen taken up more and more across the world. And it's a wonderful thing to see, because it greatly reduces the risk for women giving birth and for the outcome for the kids involved. But religion specified that in Italy it had to be 3. Thankfully, the Supreme Court threw that out, and now doctors in Italy are able to follow scientific practice. So Italy is the archetype of where religion overrides or can override good scientific protocols, and therefore make the whole process riskier than it needs to be. The idea that embryos have to be stored forever is just extraordinary. The idea that embryos are people imbued with human rights, again, doesn't pass the rationality test or the obvious test. But Dr. Michael Eisenberg was interesting. He came from Pasadena, and one of his topics, he was talking about sperm and sperm quality. And one of the issues that's been coming up of late and increasingly is the drop in male fertility. In fact, Ralph Babbitt, or I should say Senator Ralph Babbitt, you may know he was from Clive Palmer's party, attributed recently the drop in male fertility to society becoming woke. And if society weren't woke, then obviously we'd be more fertile. Well, funnily enough, Dr. Eisenberg didn't attribute that reason for the drop in fertility, but he went through a whole range of them and said, look, here are the possibles as to why men's fertility has dropped so greatly in the last 50 years. And he went through some other research that had indicated that it had been dropping in the 20th century, but then it was unclear whether that other research was reliable. But in any event, it seems that there has been quite a clear trend in the last 50 or so years of men's sperm quality dropping. And what are these reasons? Well, one is obesity. Certainly society is a lot more obese than people more obese than they were 50, 60 years ago. Evidently, if you're unfit and you're obese, then there's a good chance that the quality of the sperm you're producing is going to be lower. The second was about radio waves, such things as Wi-Fi, use of mobile phones, that this might also possibly be a way that there has been a reduction in infertility. And if you get your phone and you put it down in your pocket near your testicles, then that might have obviously some impact. Testicles being reproductive organs, being particularly sensitive to outside influences. The third one is heat. And whether we like it or not, the Earth is heating up, and that may, in fact, have also an impact on the ability to produce sperm and may account for this dip in sperm production. The next one was exposure to chemicals and plastics. And of course, living in a modern world, we can't escape plastics. They're all around us. And what impact have they had? And a related topic was that of within the body, nanoplastics, nanoparticles, and being found in men's testicles. And one study even looked at the comparison of nanoparticles, plastics in the testicles of men, testicles of dogs. So these are all these potential ways that there, or maybe a combination of these, that are causing this alarming drop in fertility. And what was his message? Well, in one slide, we don't know. We don't know which of these or a combination of these is the cause. And it may be, I suppose, some time before we do know. But at least these are being identified, and at least as far as doctors can in treating patients, by identifying these various topics, then work out a way of reducing exposure, therefore increasing fertility. Well, even though it was held in chilly Canberra, it was a very engaging conference and I enjoyed it very much. The next conference of the Fertility Society is part of the International Federation of Fertility Societies Conference, the World Congress, I should say, in Brisbane in April next year. I'm going to be there. I hope you can join me. It's going to be huge, and I'm sure it's going to be interesting and fun. Thanks for watching and listening. I'm Stephen Page from Page Provan Family and Fertility Lawyers. It's the Australian Family and Fertility Law podcast. And if you're watching this on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. See you later. Bye-bye.